What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Seams, where we bring hitters and pitchers together to talk about the game so it can grow. I'm really excited about this episode. You're going to love it. Let's keep going.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to Inside the Seams, where we bring baseball and softball players together to just get better and actually make an impact on this game so you can stay in it as long as you want. With me, as always, is the man, John Heisinger. Man, just the GOAT, the so many things. He's known by lots of names, but to me, he's known as really good friend, and I'm just really glad that I get to have these conversations with him and talk and be around him and let y'all should be a part of it. So, yeah,
Yeah,
John,
thanks, brother.
what's up, man? Man,
Oh man,
John's super busy right now. For everybody who doesn't know, he's got a bunch of pro guys. I think he said he's got 20 something pro bullpens today. So, yeah, man, it's an exciting time for him and really cool time for John just to kind of be who he is and do what he does. And so it leads to great conversation. So you are lucky that you get to hear it because his brain is just going. So, well, yeah, man, dude, I think we were talking about this a little bit, and I think it's a good conversation to kind of jump into. And so we were kind of talking about the differences of, how players have to climb up and how they've had to do it in different, days and age and time of baseball and the world and all the stuff, right? We've talked about how baseball's changed a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to throw this question out, get your opinion, and then we'll see kind of where it goes from there. But um, you see so many players from 30-year-olds down to 9-year-olds and everything in between. And so what do you think is the hardest part about being a player in today's age of baseball, the age of the world, anything?
well, I think it depends on the level you're at. Like for young guys, I think a lot of the showcase atmosphere is very misleading. Where it's like you could go, let's say, put up better numbers, but are you really developing your game? So I think part of that challenge is making sure that you're taking steps on a daily basis to get a little better versus just the, let's say, measurables, because I think measurables have a place and there's a lot of value to them, but at the same time there's a lot of stuff that's immeasurable by a machine. But as a coach who's been around it for a while, the guy that's a ball player, the guy that maybe has less stuff but he gets a lot of outs. So I think just continuing to go through the journey of self-discovery and make sure that you're taking steps in that developmental
Mm,
direction
that's
for
really
the
good.
youth guys. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's spot on, great. Completely agree. And I think what makes it the ability to do that, I don't know, more clouded is just the the array of information that's out there, right? Um, Social media is real life for a lot of people. And what people don't realize is there's, you know, a lot of marketing firms, a lot of neuroscientists, a lot of performance psychologists that are involved in a lot of these pages and a lot of these different things that are know how to trick the brain into staying on a clip, not swiping up, um, just building stuff. And so I think it's really hard. I heard a guy who does content and does it in a lot of different areas and he's a real raw guy. That's why I like him. But he said I think there's a movement back towards, like vlog type stuff or the behind the scenes or the real and raw, not all the edits. And I thought that was really cool to hear him say, right? Because both of us kind of have been that and not really changed from that, right? And so I think it's very difficult for, people to kind of know what to believe, what to follow, what to think on, what information is. I think we've talked a lot about that, but information, I think people don't have an understanding of what information is. And, it's just that designed to light up the brain and make it to where you can think and you can consider something. And so I think it's really hard because that's not really taught. People don't really know how to do that as well, and I would say that's at all levels. And it's interesting to, you know, being able to talk to pro guys, to parents, to coaches, to, 10U, 12U players, and it's always it's almost always framed in a way of, well, how do I do this? Or how do I get a better swing? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And in reality, um, I don't know for them. I know what
Well, the answer
works
could be different, right? Yeah, exactly. The
100%.
answer could be different for Joey versus Johnny.
And I don't think people understand that, right? Because it's the, hey, when I go to a showcase, I got to put up triples. When I do this, I got to run a 6.4 or below, or I do, and all of those are really good measurables. And it's one of those things where I'm glad more information is out there. I'm glad it's not you have to find a genie lamp and rub it to get information out. I'm really glad that that's there, but I think some of those things have been lost. And what's suffering is the players. And then it's hard because the players get blamed for that. And some of it's fair, some of it's not. I don't believe in blame. I believe in responsibility. So I think everybody's got a side of the responsibility coin, but I think it's just difficult. It's difficult to be a player, take the pro side. It's difficult to have a philosophy, know how you think, be aware, and then be in an organization that doesn't maybe value the same things, which is okay, right? It's going to happen and you got to adjust and all the things that we talk about. But that's a very difficult skill, and that takes practice and takes the ability, right? It's like we talk a lot about, I love how you've put it in the past where you say, I have to teach my players how to hear their coach. And I
Mhm.
have to teach them, hey, when they're saying this, this is how you personally interpret it. Not for all coaches, not for this, not for, but when they say stay back or they say you're early or they say whatever, that means for you that this thing we've been working on. You remember know how yeah, yeah. So that's how you interpret it. And I think what's difficult is I was talking to one of my best friends yesterday and he's got a guy, he's got a bunch of college guys, and one of his college guys was, his coaches have at school have a way that they want things done. Totally fair, right? And so the kid's a good kid, and so he's trying to do that. Well, that type of thing very much throws him off physically, biomechanically, efficiency wise. And so then the coach, not, not maliciously, but it's like, hey, you're uncoachable. You don't know, you're not listening to what is said. And my friend did a great thing. He said, you need to go and talk to your coach. Because realistically, even if he gets mad, your playing time is still going to be the same as it is right now. And so it was really cool because they were able to get on the same page. And I don't know if that's always going to be the case realistically, but I think the way that the kid went was super helpful, right? But people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to disagree. They don't know how to anything. Just go look at my comment section, go look at John's comment section. His YouTube comments crack me up, right? Like people don't even know they don't know how to disagree.
Or I'd say, or even just like raise your hand and say, it's okay to say you don't know something, right? Where I think like sometimes as a player too, you feel like you have to understand what people are saying. And it's like, well, sometimes, I mean, the best thing can happen when I say, hey, do you understand what I'm saying? And you say no, because then we can actually find that common ground versus, just being on one side of the teeter totter.
Hmm. That's wisdom. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that kids for players for a long time have been beat down by that, and so they don't know how to have those conversations. They don't know how to say no, that doesn't work.
I think time and place too, right? Where it's like, hey, if it's in the middle of practice, hold it, right? Like wait, maybe go early to practice, or you know, back in the day it was send an email, now it's send a text, but it's like see if you can come early and
Mm-hmm.
talk to coach in the office before you go. And, a lot of times that conversation of, let's say 5 minute conversation could change the outlook on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you guys, he knows you care. You actually understand what he's saying. So now you have a chance to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I think last time we talked about the board game where it's like if we both know the rules, there can be a lot more fun and strategy versus like if we both have different rules for this game, it's more than likely we're going to be on a different page.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably, if I could sum it up, my answer to the original question would be that is the hardest part because players don't know how to do that. And in my opinion, they shouldn't have to do most of it, right? Like they should have to do some of it for sure, but the leader, the adult, the coach, the mentor should be doing that or leading that way. But I get it, time, all the things. I understand. So I think that's the hardest part is these kids, players don't know how to do that. And so in an age where it's, certain analytics are very, very important. Measurables are good. We've covered that. We've said that. I just want to say it again. They're good. They're needed. It's accountability. For me, it's accountability, realistically. My eyes tell me one thing. I need video and I need analytics to back me up, right? Not
Mm.
to prove me right, but what my eyes are seeing is that the other thing that's seeing. Because
It's
if
almost
it's
like driving your car, right?
mm,
Like, hey, I'm driving down the road and I have no speedometer. Okay, yes, I can drive at the speed of traffic and I can
mhm,
kind of keep safe that way. But at the same time, it's like if the speed limit says 40 and we're all driving 60, or it says 40 and we're all driving 35, like that's kind of what the metrics to me is almost like a speedometer in your car. And especially for throwers, it's like just seeing where your intensity is at versus where maybe you got to bring it. And some
mm,
days, things feel easy. Some days you might have to dig a little deeper.
mhm.
I think that's the fun part about this game is every day is a little different.
And I think that's where I think the fun of baseball has been lost in a lot of veins. I think I had a guy who was a director of ops for a very prominent college program, and so they had a bunch of guys come back and train in the off season, and they weren't necessarily training at the college, but they were using it because they lived close, and it was easier than going to a regular place and having people want to sign autographs and all this stuff, right? So the guy, my friend, was talking with him and having conversations, and he called me afterwards and he goes, "Man, I'm kind of taken back a little bit at these conversations and how this is 100% a job for these guys and it's not very fun to them." And I mean, we're talking really good players, prominent program, like in the pro system. And it's not that it can all be fun and games at all, but there's an element to it where fun is why we stick with it, not to get a college scholarship, not to get all the things. People, that's where like people overreact sometimes to passion moments for people. And I think there in some of those moments there are coachable moments for the people. There almost always are, right? Nobody's a finished product. But I think it's people have forgotten what it's like to get a big time strikeout when you walk the bases loaded in the seventh inning and in the inning and walk it off. That's a fun, awesome feeling. Just like coming up big and hitting a double or the same it's the fun part of it. And again, I'm not advocating showing people up, anything like that, because like sometimes it's overboard and there's a coachable moment there. But I think when you're a 10U travel team that pays 100 games a year,
Hmm.
100 it's just and then we wonder and we call the kids soft or we call the kids this or we call the kids whatever. And it's funny, I've stayed in hotels when they've had these big tournaments. I've stayed in hotels when My own team was in a tournament, and you look at these youth kids, and what are they doing? Right? They're doing some stupid stuff that most of the time they shouldn't be doing. They're disturbing people, right? Fair. But what are they doing? They're having fun. They're
Hmm.
having fun because they know that for damn sure they're not going to have fun on the field. And I think that's where some of it's been, like it's okay to laugh when this happens. It's okay to enjoy it. It's okay to be zeroed in too. But at the same point, like you got to enjoy it at the same point. And I don't think baseball, I think that if I could see it for these players, it's not fun. There's not a whole lot of it that's fun. And I think it's been so ingrained in the insecurity of, you know, being exposed or not being as good as this person or the comparison that that's what motivates people more than the man, I really enjoy this. And and you're not going to do that all the time. Like, let's be realistic. It's just not going to happen. But we can't have those moments. And I don't think when you're chasing EV, you're chasing just velocity. It's constant. I can remember last year when I was out there, one of the guys was, trying to get signed and needed to hit a certain number for a team.
Hmm.
And you watched the effort go up, but you watched the pressure and the anxiety go up. And I remember, I don't know what was said because I was trying to help the hitters because, good Lord, it was impossible to hit. But something was said where he laughed and then popped the number and above, like on consecutive pitches. And I'll remember that for the day till the day I die. And there's just something to that. It's hard. Like pressure is privilege. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
And but there's a difference between the pressure of the situation and other, in pressure of fear, right? Bad fear. And that's completely different. And then you see people's performance go like this when that happens because it's like, hey, there's pressure enough just being here. So now I have to perform whether I'm 10U and I'm going to get my butt chewed all the way home or I'm this guy and I'm trying to get signed. There's pressure regardless. But when you add that other stuff, it's just like, man, you think about it, some of these players never have enjoyment. They just work. Think about
Well, I
that.
think you got, different styles of players too, right? Where you get
Mm,
guys that, let's say, are a 5 o'clock hitter. You got the guy that's amazing in BP, and then you get in the game and he's whiffing at everything. Or you got the guy, that's lights out in the bullpen, and then you put him in, bases juiced, 1 out, and he struggles. So I think there's different guys enjoy the pressure you're talking about different ways. Where it's like for me, I always liked the pressure because I could stay calm under the pressure, but I was also prepared.
mm.
So I think, confidence is preparation. So like anytime you're prepared and you go into that situation, good things can come out of it versus, you go into it like you're talking about with fear. Now, some guys use fear as a motivator. You hear like Dennis Eckersley talk about it, which was always the first time I heard him, I'm like, what? It was because he looked so calm and cool out there, but it was like he was right on that line of pressure and performance right there, and just remove the noise and got after it. But I think kind of on our same topic is, when you look at pro guys, as far as let's say throwing bullpens in the off season, and you're throwing to, let's say, improve a pitch, and it's like, is taking horizontal movement away and adding vertical a better thing, or the opposite? Or, is it actually better if the machine says it better, or is it better when the hitter shows that it's better? Right. So I always encourage guys, it's like, hey, we got to have time for play, time for experimentation, whether it's a grip or it's a different thought or maybe a different slot, whatever it is, you got to have room for that. But then at the end of the day, if the feedback you're getting is just from technology and not from a hitter, I think you can lead yourself down a path of, well, nowhere. It's like your path leads to nowhere if you're just chasing numbers. And I think, I've seen it with a lot of different guys. And then I think too, there's the element of when you're in season, everybody that's evaluating, everybody that's looking at you is either working for the organization or working for the other organization. And in the off season, it should be more personalized to the individual, right? And I think we're seeing that more and more and more with organizations as they get, let's just say, more attuned to like, hey, this is what makes this guy click. But I think there's still a lot of almost like boxes that you have to fit in to, let's say, get that job opportunity you're talking about, or to move on to that next level. And if you fit their mold, then a lot of times you can move up. And then if you fail to fit that mold, a lot of times that's when you see guys either out of the game or they get an opportunity with another organization. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, he struggled over there and now he's really good over here. What changed? And it's like, well, maybe the narrative changed, or maybe the mindset changed, or he was trying to please or fit into this box when his box is right over here. In the grand scheme of baseball is this huge box, and we look for these guys that have to meet these numbers and fit in there. But then at the end of the day, you find a lot of times your successful guys at the highest levels are at the edges or the outliers of those boxes. So it's like, I think staying authentic and true to yourself is so key, because when it comes down to it, are you trying to fit in a box, or are you trying to, like you're talking about, enjoy the game and live your dream? And like, how did this play out?
That's good. Yeah, because that's the thing. We don't know. Very few people actually get to decide when they stop playing. I think there's a picture that's gone around several times where it's like, I think it's from the Sandlot, right? And there was like there was one time, like, we never knew when the last time we played was the last time we were going to play together, or that's what they were talking about. But I didn't know my last at bat was going to be my last at bat. I didn't know it. And some people get to choose, and that's great, but most people don't. It's kind of decided for them. And I think
even Nolan Ryan didn't get to choose how he went out, and that's a 27-year big leaguer.
The GOAT.
Sheesh.
The GOAT. And yeah, I mean, even listening to him talk after the injury happened, it was crazy to hear Superman talk like that.
That was heart-wrenching, right?
Yes.
Yeah. One documentary, it gets me every time still, where it's like you can just see it.
It tears your heart out, right? It just absolutely destroys you. And I think it's, and there is a business side of it, there is a work side of it, there is a preparation to all those things. But at the same, like, I was talking with one of my guys last night. He's incredible. He's like a little brother to me. I love him. And he was reacting. He's just swinging so good. Like, he's really coming to his own, and he's good he's just doing so well and hitting everything hard and misses all the things. And he's reacting, and we have a really good relationship. We know each other for 5 years, and he's reacting at these. He's going 18 for 20, 17 for 20 off of front toss, and he's reacting at the ones he misses. And I'm being able to be quiet, right? I'm just kind of giving him the chance to stop and whatever. He did it again. I lost it. And I got super in his face and super intense, and I was like, I'm so freaking tired of watching you do that. When if you're gonna do that, you better react the same way when you scorch a ball. He's like, well, I expect to do that. It's like, I'm not saying you shouldn't expect to do that, but like, you're in a game where you're gonna fail 7 times out of 10. You should expect to fail at the same point, and now you're acting like it's the end of the world. And so I'm not saying like get soft or this, but it's like when you hit a ball at 103, super easy, shut up and like, yeah, that was good. That was really good. And if we don't stop, then it's all work. And it's never worth it. This game isn't worth it if we don't enjoy the That's why when you hear people talk about their time playing, what do they talk about? We've talked about this. The camaraderie, the stories, the this. Yes, there's things that have to do with the game. Yes, but there's way more about the other. Why? I don't know. My guess would be because of the enjoyment, because of the bond, because of the this. And we have to look at that, right? And I think it's very difficult. It's difficult. I think it's really difficult for high school and college players right now. I think it's really difficult. So what would be your opinion on like what we're talking about? What would be your best advice for like high school, college people that are going through this and having to wade through all this stuff? What's your couple pieces of advice for that?
Well, I mean, I think if you can shift your mindset to seeing failure as feedback, where it's like you just said a minute ago, but it's especially for a hitter, it's a game of failure. For a good pitcher, it's not a game of failure. And I remind guys of this all the time, where it's like, you know how you always hear baseball's a game of failure. Well, not for a successful pitcher, right? But there's right off of what you were talking about, the 3-second rule that we teach, right? So after I throw the baseball, for 3 seconds, I have to act like it went where I wanted it to go. And that dictates a lot of things, right? Like, especially if I go, let's say I missed inside to a right-handed hitter and I drop my head and my shoulders drop and whatever. Does that guy think there's any chance of me going back inside? No. So now it gave him a chance to eliminate part of the plate. And he also saw that I can be defeated by me just simply missing a spot. So I feel like that's like dropping water or blood in the water for sharks, right? Hitters, good hitters, especially, they read body language.
Have to.
You know, they can tell if you're confident in something or if you're failing to show confident. And then all of a sudden they can just tip something off and it shifts that whole meter. And then all of a sudden the ball looks like a beach ball, and we've all seen it, you know. But I think embracing the struggle is the other part, right? Where it's like it's something that's been said a lot. I think I heard it from someone who heard it from Octavio Dotel. If you remember that guy, he was
Filthy.
unbelievable reliever, right? Like I think he was with the Astros down there, so you definitely probably. And he would throw sometimes like 80 games a year, maybe even more, right? That's a lot of games. And the way that I was told was, you know, baseball, especially a big league season, can be a roller coaster. And you look to stay in the middle. So it's like the highs are never as high and the lows are never as low. Whereas like with your hitter, it's like if you're gonna cuss yourself for the failures, then you better cuss yourself for the successes. Or it's like, hey, if I love sunshine and I'm only happy when it's sunshine and now there's rain, it's like, no, I'm gonna go after it whether it's sunshine or rain, you know. And I'm gonna find the silver cloud in there sometimes, that silver lining, because this game is hard. And it's sometimes you might have 10 at bats and only one of them felt good. Well, you better build on that one versus letting those other 9 affect the next one. So another thing we teach our guys is that each pitch is a new game. And I think it makes it a lot more digestible that way, where we have our rating scale of 1 to 10. And I teach them this in practice. You've seen it. But after they throw a pitch, hey, rate it. 1's the worst throw of your life, 10's the best throw of your life. Where was it? Now, goal, 8 and above, right? We build a house with 8s and above. But let's say we have a 5. Either way, we're going to take it and we're going to chuck it in the bucket and rinse and repeat. Get back to our routine, get back to our breath, get back to our attack mentality, right? But whatever happens, as much as we can, getting back to that present moment, right where our feet are at. You know, each pitch is a new game.
It's good. It's really good.
Easier said than done, though, right?
No,
and I think that's why it has to be practiced. It can't be just like, hey, I'm going to sit and talk to 100 kids and I'm going to say, each pitch is a new game. Go get it, boys. It's like, yes, that's a great theory, but how do we apply that? And I think that's where it's like having little successes throughout the day. For me, I'm a list guy. So if I make lists and I go through and I check those off, I have that sense of accomplishment, and it drives me to keep knocking out the rest of that list. Versus if I just blindly go into my day and I'm like, hey, there's 50 things I'm supposed to do today. It's a different way to approach it. So I think it's making it digestible, because then you're not taking 9 at bats of failure on yourself. It's like you're literally able to simplify and cut out the emotion of the previous pitch or the anticipation of the next pitch.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's so good. Yeah, that's really good. So you have a lot of experience with this. You dealt with it a lot. What is your advice to, I'll say 3 groups in this question. Probably the high school player, the college player, and then maybe a parent of both. What's your advice for when there's a coach that looks at things significantly different and there's not a whole lot of give from the coach side? What has been your advice for troubleshooting how to deal with that in specifics, right? Because I think like people know, hey, go talk to your coach and talk about this stuff. But even how you do that is important. So in your experience with your wisdom, what are some tangible things for when this is going on, this situation, how do you deal with it and still have success?
I think first of all, if you can sleep on it a lot of times, like especially you see parents that get upset about something and they're upset in that moment, and then maybe the next day is a better time to have a conversation, or save the text message. Don't say it, don't send it, don't send a mean email, right? Like take a second, digest it. If you would say it to my face, you can put it in an email. If you wouldn't say it to my face, just save it, right? Because a lot of times it can lead things down further paths. As a player, I think a lot of times it helps if you give your coach the benefit of the doubt. Now, sometimes that's hard to do, right? But a lot of times coaches are coaching to get guys better. We talk about this all the time. I think it's guys' hearts are usually in the right place. There's definitely exceptions. But I think if I'm in attack mode and I go and attack you, you're going to come right back in attack mode, right? And that's especially dude to dude. Like I get loud, you're going to get loud. Versus if I can stay calm, and then as a player, I think if you're going to go talk to coach, start it with a question. Or with I'm failing to understand this. Is there something I'm missing? Or something along those lines where it gives coach a chance to say, hey, this, because I think we've all been on teams, and maybe both of us have probably been that guy, but it's like I have thick enough skin that I've had coaches before that will say, hey, I'm going to get on you because I know you can take it, but it's really for the rest of the group, or it's more for this or for that. And I think, just knowing who you are and what you can take, but then at the same time, know the heart of your coach. Is he trying to help with this situation, or is he had a bad day and he's being freaking mean? Because sometimes when you have that, you can't put a whole lot of value to what they say either, And if you have an emotional coach that's like this, you're going to get the highs, you're going to get the lows. And as a player, if you can stay that steady heartbeat in the middle, coaches are going to notice.
I think yeah, I love that.
I think the difference between high school and college too, since you put that out there is definitely a difference, right? Where the college guy is going to really have a lot of ownership. There's no parents there. There's no parents involved, right? As a high school guy, sometimes you're going to be caught in between what the parents are saying and what the coaches are saying. And for you as the player, finding that middle ground again.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think
put the ball in their court, right? Like, it's like, even if I genuinely want to get better, like, let's say I have a question and I'm going to call you. Would I call and give you my opinion and then be like, what do you think? That's one way I could do it. Or I could I already know what I think, and without warping what you're thinking, just say, hey, I'm dealing with this right now. What's your thoughts on that? And then afterwards, maybe being like, okay, I like how you said this. This is kind of how I was looking at it. And it depends on if you really want that other lens, and it's got to be somebody like with you. I value your opinion. So, like, if I call you and I'm asking you for something, I want to see it from your lens, not see it where you're trying to please me or say, oh, yeah, that's going to make Zing feel good because I agree with him. It's like, no, a lot of times I want to hear the other perspective so I can kind of find a more common ground versus feeling where I'm right, you're wrong. This is the way.
Yeah. And that's I think a lot of people want to be like that, but they're not in reality, and it's okay, right? We all got our stuff, we all got our areas of improvement, but I think you hit on so many good things there, and there's one thing that really stuck out to me that I want to hit on is when emotions are involved at any capacity, it's just in the moment, it's just never going to be good. You can take that across anything. And it's good that you don't like your playing time. It's good that you want your kid to do better. It's good that you want your kid to have an opportunity. It's good that you want to shine. Those are all good things. And then in reality, it comes down to just the way that the player wants the information personalized. You can go and seek that out from your coach. And there's ways to do it where a lot of people, it's gotten out about, hey, you can go talk to your, what can I do to get on the field more? Right? I think that's a way that like a coach like me or you could handle that. I think certain percentage of them could handle that, but it also could be perceived by the other percentage of the coaches as you're a me guy, inadvertently, right? Just with all the things that their life, their time, all the stuff. And I think there's a difference between how can I get on the field more versus, hey, coach, I'm not doing what it takes to earn playing time and earn your trust. What I would like to do is hear your honest feedback about what I can do to earn that trust. Because I want to earn it. I haven't yet. You don't trust me to put me out there, and I want to earn that. How can I earn that to you, right? Or if it's, hey, there, just an example, right? Like if you're a foot down, your coach tells you got to get your foot down early, but you're a flow guy and you need to be up late. Hey, coach, I know we've been talking about this, and I'm really, really trying to process this so I can do what you're asking me to do because I know you just want me to get hits. So when I hear you say this is what it means to me. And then I take film and I watch that I'm not producing the way I need to. And then so because of that, I go right and I try and do it this way. And so I think that's causing some frustration with you because it appears that I'm not trying to do what you're asking, but I really want to. Can you give me a little bit more context on what you see so I then can take what you're saying and do it? Because I want to, because I know you just want me to get hits. Because if I get hits or if I pitch well, we win games, you look good, everything else works. So can you give me a little bit more context so I'm just not at the understanding level yet. And so now I'm just trying to do what you say. And so I can do that. But I want to get to an understanding so then I don't question it. And two, I can help other guys with it. When you say this, I can be like, hey, me and coach talked about this. This is kind of some of the things that he shared. So take that and kind of process that. That's having a conversation like that's completely different than how do I get on the field more? Because what does that imply? You're keeping me from being on the field.
Or like, why am I not playing?
Why am I
Or
not playing? As opposed anything where you can make it personal on you and they don't have to again, it's not a dude versus dude, like alpha versus alpha.
or a blame
Anytime.
game.
Yes. Like anytime it can be, hey, I'm missing the mark. That's why I'm here. I want to fix it. Can we talk about it a little bit because I want to fix it? And I want to, man, I know when I fix it, I know what I can do, and I want to earn your trust. I'm not there yet. And I know that. That's why I'm sitting here. You have that kind of conversation. I don't care if it's the shittiest human being on the planet. They're going to take that a lot of times. Be like, oh, well, he didn't put anything on me. He owned what was his. That's where it goes back to one of my favorite concepts, which is extreme ownership.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if it's 99% the other person's responsibility. You own your 1%. You own what's yours. And you talk about what's yours. And you can do that in all aspects. But if you own yours and you talk about yours, then you're not talking about the other person's responsibility, right? Because from a player to coach, it's very difficult for the player to have a conversation to require the coach to look at their responsibility. In certain cases, it can happen, right? Like towards the end of your career, you're a veteran guy, like you've known this manager, like you could have some candid conversations with him, but that's not the case for most people. And so the ability to own what's yours and focus, make that the focus of conversation, it will completely shift. That way you don't brush ego. And anytime you brush ego, there's going to be an emotional response. And you don't even know what will hit the ego. So it's one of those things where it's like I feel like less is more, less words are better, and own your part, right? Where it's like it doesn't even need to be, well, my pitching coach is telling me to do this, right? You take what you've learned and it's like, hey, Zing is really, we've talked a lot about like, the sequencing of things. Now my front arm has been off a little bit. You don't talk about that. You don't say, well, Zinger told me that, I had to do this. And it's like, I know
Yes.
how important it is for me to stay closed and not fly open so the hitter can't see the ball early. That's completely different than, well, my pitching coach told me to do this. It's like, hey, you're right. And if we're going to be real, John's probably right. Like, he's probably right over the other person. But it's not about being right. It's about getting
Right.
it. And it's like, if we can get it right, realistically, listen, in my opinion, there are very few coaches who ever helped me. Nothing personal. My dad helped me more than anybody ever. And but I could hear what people were saying and it would remind me of what I knew about myself. Right? When I would hear, "Hey, you struck out, you shouldn't have swung at that slider." It's like, first of all, it's no shit. But second of all, it's like, yeah, you're right. Is that first pitch fastball I took. That's why I
Mhm.
struck out. Right?
And
And
that's
so
good.
and
So,
that's how my dad taught us how to do everything with conflict. What are people trying to say? Okay, they're pointing out that you made a mistake. Okay, where did the mistake occur? It occurred here. Okay, so now when they say that, don't get personal. Don't think it's in a personal like that's something too, man, that like it's like when you have a jersey, I learned this when I was an umpire. I had one of the best mentors ever when I was an umpire. He said, look, he's like, what do you do before the game? He said, you get your uniform on, you put your stuff on, whether you're behind the dish or not. And he goes, you're putting on the umpire. What do you do when you go to the car? You take it off. So you're taking off the umpire. And it's very similar when it's a player. It may be personal. I'm not saying it's not because people are broken and hurt people. But they're talking to the player. They're talking to the player more than they're talking to John.
mhm.
And we take it personal because they're right and we know they're right and it hurts. We don't like it. And that's what we do, right? We deflect, we get the spotlight off of us when it's something bad, as opposed to, hey, he's talking to the player and the player went 0 for 4 with 4 punchies today. That player is earning every bit of what that dude's about to say. Not me. When I take it off, I'm back to being me. And when we can you know, I think it's hard because there's such a cool relationship with coach and player, and coaches don't remember that enough. Um, but we can either, as players or advocates for the player, we can either wait for the coaches to change and hope that they're going to change on their own, or be realistic and know that we got to do our part. Own what we can. That's it. And that's all we can really do. So it's like, hey, they're talking to the player. Don't let emotions get involved. They're not talking about this. They're not talking about that. They're talking about you went this, you're costing me this. This is making me get pressure from the school board or the boosters, and you're screwing that up. Not me as the person, me the player. They're different things. They're absolutely different things. And I think when people can understand that, then it makes it very much easier to receive it. And then when you take the jersey off, leave it there. And know, hey, now the person is going to work on that. So then the player is going to get better. I'm going to use my person to digest that information. So then it will turn into the player. And that's a problem. We always work on the player and it never, but then when people are critical of the player, the person takes it personal. And in reality, that's not it. It's the player has all this stuff. Okay, so now the person's going to digest it and then produce it as a player. That's where we got to get to as players and advocates of players, is even as parents, right? It's like your kid is going to screw up and make you look stupid. It's part of the job description. It didn't like that. You shouldn't have done the deed. And it's like, that's where it's okay. Yeah, you let people think whatever they want to think about you. Because like, look, like bottom line, when my kids are done doing whatever they're doing, they're still my kid. They're still my kid, and I don't care. Same thing all the way up. I don't care. That's why I heard it. I heard it said the other day where it's like usually ex big leaguers or people that have played or coached at a high level, they're the best parents. Just stay out of the way, and it's okay, right? But it's like they understand the pressure. They understand the process that goes into it. They understand he's 14. He's got to learn how to do this. You know, like that's one of the things I was talking to my mom about the other day. Like, just like how do you teach? Because my kids are young, and how do you teach kids, how to fail? Not even how to fail, but how to deal with it. Because like one of my kids is she likes to be right and she likes to be precise and there's a right way and do it this way. And it's good. That will play out to her advantage as she gets older. But a drawback of that is she doesn't like to take chances. So my job as the mentor is to instill in her subconscious failure is feedback. How are you going to know if you can climb that tree if you don't climb that tree? It's a whole lot more lame when you don't climb the tree. Try. Try climbing the rock. Try climbing this. Fall down. Do it. My other one is just the opposite, right? She just does and doesn't think. So there's sandpaper on either one of those, but it's like if we can embed that in the subconscious where it's like part of the process is failure. Failure is the process. Learning feedback is part of the process. And I think if we can do that, then we can detach emotion from it. You're still going to get emotional. You should.
Especially in baseball. Baseball is a very emotional game.
100%. You get pulled. You have a bad game. It's okay to be mad. It's okay. You should be. It means you care. Now what? Now what are you going to do? How am I going to think about this as a person so it translates to the player?
I like to talk about it like it's an alter ego, right? Where it's like you have certain guys that, let's say Clark Kent and Superman, right? He puts the suit on. He's one guy. When he's no suit on, he's the other guy. And I think that I like how you said that with the uniform, where a lot of times, especially once I got the pro ball, I'd be hard on myself. Even if it was a whatever good outing, I would still find something. And then later on, I got to, be around some veteran guys, and they're like, "Hey, man, leave it at the yard, right? Like once you take your clothes off and you throw your stuff on the laundry loop and you take your shower, it's done. And then when you come back the next day, it's there, and it's like you kind of."
Yep.
It's almost like pushing a rock uphill. But it's like if I keep pushing that rock up the hill when I'm off the field too, that same rock, a lot of times you'll lose that joy. And that's where I was at, where it's like I had lost the joy in the game And my reminder to find the joy again came from Mr. Dave Hilton, who was my coach at the time. And he reestablished that joy, but part of it was just me being able to let go of what was done and come back the next day with a fresh mindset, and but still that sting of what had happened, right? Because that sting of what happened is what makes me get better, and it makes me hungry. Versus, if this game just handed everything to you, I think it'd be way less satisfying. Versus, it's a hard game, right? It's played by boys, but even men, it's hard. It's a very, very hard game.
It's a great way to put it. Like it's just learning how to do that, right? We're talking about concepts and then the application of it, but the bottom line of this is you got to do it. You have to do it, and you have to. And anytime, I just always go back to when kids first start walking, they fall thousands of times, and it doesn't stop because they know they gotta. And that's where it's always like when people that struggle with motivation, struggle with drive, struggle with inspiration, whatever it is. When I talk to those people, I look at them and say, you don't struggle with it. It's just not high enough on the priority list. You have time. When people say I don't have time, it just means it's not important enough
Time management, yeah.
to make it important, to do it.
Priority.
And it's like, you could do it. You just have to move it up on the priority list. And you haven't decided to do that yet. And it's okay. You don't have to. That's your choice. I mean, I was talking with one of my buddies about it yesterday. I was like, look, there's snowballs here and you can do it. And you're looking at this as a mountain, and it's not, because there's snow everywhere. You just got to pick which one, and you'll find the time. Even if it's 30 minutes a week. I was like, man, if you get one thing done a week, that's 52 things done in a year. 52. You do 52 things of anything. That's some progress. That's some progress. And I think that's all it is. So when we're hearing this, when you're processing it, this comes down to, don't let this be a piece of information. It's like, okay, what piece of this makes sense? Now what? How do I walk this out? How do I do this? It's like, if you want to be like John, like, you got to sign up for all the shit that John went through. That's the thing, right? Like, people want to be John or have this or blah, 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 but they didn't go through all the shit that he went through. And it's like, if you want that, that's what it costs.
Yeah, be careful what you hope for.
That's wisdom. It's absolute wisdom. So I think that's just what it comes down to. And now it's about, don't listen and hear it, but actually do it. Make it tangible. What's one way I can do it this week? That's it. Just do that. Just do that. Whether you're a player or you're a parent. If you're a parent, how can I ask the question after the game or after the hitting lesson different this time? Instead of, what'd you do? So what'd you learn? What'd you talk about this week that made more sense? How can I support you better?
Well, I think my guys have it pretty easy, because a lot of times that's how I'm going to end a lesson, where it's like, hey, we did this, this, and this, and we have our list of all the things we did. What's one thing that's your takeaway, right? Because like, there could be 50 things that we did today, but if there's one thing that's a takeaway, that means I'm going to bottle that up and take ownership of that. That's mine. And for some guys, it's as simple as, hey, single leg works really hard. And I'm like, okay, then go home and brush your teeth on a single leg every day. Or, because there's, like you said, there's small little applications where, yeah, we have this problem here we're looking to solve, and here's the application. And slow and steady wins the race. Consistency is the key.
I love that. That's where, if people aren't surrounded by people like me and you, that's how you do it, those things. That's how those things happen, is slowly doing that. Being able to, hey, I just did all this. Now make it simple. Single leg was hard. Brush your teeth on one leg. Simple. Like, literally, that's the most simple thing in the world. It's 2 minutes. Do single leg for 1 minute and single leg for another minute. That's it. There's your one day better that everybody thinks is impossible. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just moves the tick a little bit forward, a little bit forward. And if you do that for 365 days a year, you ain't going to struggle with single leg. You're just not going to do it, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So if you had some closing thoughts, some closing advice, some closing anything for this topic, what would be it?
I think what stuck out to me was conscious language and communication. So like thinking before you speak and having a strategy, especially when you're dealing with coaches who do put in a lot of time and effort to things, and I think, I mean, the extreme ownership, or what I like to call the art of learning to be your own best coach, right? Where it's like, as a coach, I'm looking to give you tools to make your adjustments, right? Versus me doing something that's about me. It's like I'm genuinely coaching to make you better. So if you can go home and apply that, and I think too, like with what you talked about, be careful what you ask for, because sometimes if you go in and you're like, hey, I really think I deserve more playing time, and I'm going to go ask coach. Well, when he tells you, you better be able to digest that, and you better be able to do something with it, versus like feeling like you were talking about with the two different, your ego and your alter ego, your person and your player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to find that line, and then realize that what you do as a person has an effect on what you do as a player. And every little thing, we talk about this all the time, right? But the little things are rarely little things. The little things are foundational, and a lot of times become a lot bigger. They're the seeds that you're planting. We all want the fruit, but let's focus on the roots. That'll give you better fruit long term.
So good. And it takes longer, but it's worth it because
It does.
it lasts longer, right? And I think the thing I'll leave everybody with is one of my mentors. I've known him almost half my life. He not a baseball guy, which is part of the reason why I love him so much. He said something that I want to leave you with, and I think it's incredibly imperative. This guy's a brain guy, behavior guy, understands all the things and how humans produce it and where it comes from, root systems, all that stuff. That's where I've learned so much of it. He said, again, he's not a baseball guy. We were talking about him and I were having a conversation. He goes, if parents, players, coaches, everybody alike would realize that the person produces the player, it would completely shift how everybody does everything. And he's never played baseball, never had a kid play baseball, never did any of it. He played guitar growing up. That was his deal. So for somebody who's completely outside of the realm to be able to see that just based on my conversation with him, we need to take note of that. The player produces, or the person produces the player always. Because the person's always there, the player isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when that shift can happen, more of the things that we're talking about will happen naturally, as opposed to behavior modification. In my opinion, this game is not about behaving better. It's about being better so you can produce at a different level. If you level up, everything levels up.
I'd say piggyback off that too, right? Like, do what's right because it's right, instead of doing what's right because you're trying to please somebody, or you're trying to check a box. It's exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And so I would say that and then do something about it, or you just wasted time. And I'm not about wasting time. John's not about wasting time, and especially not your time. So be about it, do something about it, and don't let this just be something else that you hear. Let it light your brain up and then require your brain to do something. Make it do something. What Kobe says, it's crazy how many promises and agreements that people break with themselves. It's crazy. If you think
Talk
about
about that all the time too, because
Mm.
compromise, right? Like, let's say I have this goal and I have this dream. I know these steps that as a person will make me a better player. You got to do it, just like you're talking about, right? And it's like your why has to be stronger than any excuse that could come up.
It's so good. And it's, if we wouldn't break a bunch of promises to people that we love and we care about, and our friends or our parents or our coach, why do we allow ourselves to do it to ourselves? And that's something that we got to swallow, and it's a tough pill to swallow. If you're going to say something, if you're going to commit to something, you're committing to yourself. That's a promise. Do it. Even when it sucks. It's not about it. It's not about whether it sucks or not. It's about whether you said you were going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So do it. So yeah, those are kind of my encouragement to everybody as I'm walking that out myself too, right? That's not said from a place of a place of hierarchy. Police just showed up to John's house apparently.
Watch out now, It's the truth police. It's the truth police.
I love it.
Actions speak louder than words. Nobody cares what you say, they care what you do, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Nobody cares what you know, they care what you show. Home
That's good.
now, bada hoot at bada hoot at.
That's tweetable right there, baby. That's a retweet. That's a retweet right there. So, well, y'all are awesome. Thanks for listening and sticking with us and doing all the stuff. We're passionate about this, and I'm sure you can hear that. So take our passion, take our work, take our hard that we've gone through it, and use it and use it as a fast track to go through some of the mistakes that we missed. So, appreciate y'all for listening. John, you're the man. I appreciate your wisdom. I know everybody else does too.
Yeah, thanks for breathing, my friend. It was awesome, as usual.
As usual. Love you, man. Well, y'all, we'll talk soon, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure you were able to get a lot out of that. So because of that, make sure that you share this, right? Make sure that you put it out on social media, on your stories. Make sure that you subscribe, give us a 5-star review, because our passion is to see the game grow, and our passion is to see you become the best baseball or softball player that you can. So go ahead and do that for us, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.